very best of luck with that. I certainly know you got the spirit, but that is almost self-evident that you will chase that dream. But you also have some other projects going on, and they will help others do the same. Isn't that the case?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons why I was able to become a pretty successful Brood War player wasn't necessarily because of some innate talent or, just sheer manpower of hours. I mean, surely those things do help to one degree or another. But a big part of progressing in a game as challenging as StarCraft, Brood War, and StarCraft 2 is having people around you that can critique your play and help improve it. And for me, that was kind of just, it took years of joining clans, winning small leagues, and eventually rubbing shoulders with other people. It was finally when I kind of befriended Testy. As controversial as that figure is, one thing that's undeniable is he played very, very well in Brood War, and he was the guy that kind of allowed me to play some of his friends. I would play with him, and he just dominated me for years and years and years. But every time he did it, he would say, well, here's something you can improve upon, or you really need to think about this, or you need to do that. So those kind of things would eventually get improved upon and worked on until it became to a certain point where I was starting to take games from him, and I started to kind of hit that level where I was no longer just a complete noob lapping at his feet, but rather somebody that could pseudo-compete from time to time. He'll be quick to tell you that his record is far and away better than mine when it comes to him and I, versing each other, but I did win a few games, and I'm pretty happy about that.
As you should be. Newcomers may only think that Testy is a very obnoxious and slightly disconcerting name for a player, but old-timers know that it's a name to be feared. But these experiences led on to you co-founding GoSuCoaching.com then, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, as you talked about at the beginning of the interview, this was the coaching thing was something that kind of just took off. I was a pretty poor college student, and I played a lot of StarCraft, so I thought, well, why not combine the two and try to make a few bucks? And it kind of took off, and I'm really happy with what where it's gone. Just, I've had very, very, very few negative experiences with this, and that's kind of being almost humble with that, because to be honest, I haven't had a single student that's disappointed that I know of. They haven't vocalized that to me anyways. And, there's just been a couple other, almost administrative issues, but that's to be expected with anything. But Louder, the founder of GoSuCoaching.com, had this kind of in his plans for a while, and combining the two just made really good sense, and since then it's been doing very well.
So, what is it that it does then? Gosu, of course, it's a StarCraft term that needs very little explanation, but what does Gosu Coaching offer prospective students?
There's like a present and future way to answer that. Presently, what Gosu Coaching offers is a place where people can go get some free content. We try to put articles up there. We're not as organized as we should be in that respect. We try to become, kind of a supplementary nexus of information aside from Team Liquid. If you're very much so a beginner and you want to find good literature, obviously you start with the Day 9 dailies and Team Liquid strategy forum. But if you want to supplement that and get some more specific articles written by pretty high-level players, then you go to Gosu Coaching. And then for the not free content necessarily, but probably, it's very unique. Gosu Coaching is a place where you can go contact a top player, like Machine, a guy who took 4th place in WCG USA, LZ Gamer, an extremely prolific Terran player who's very gifted in games in general. There's very few games he plays where he's not extremely good at. And then there's other people like Louder, Nyoke and myself. A lot of these guys have done very well in RTS, and especially with StarCraft 2, where there's kind of a melding of communities. It's a nice place for new people or skilled people alike to come and say, hey, I'd like to pay you for a couple hours and work on my game. And to get that hands-on approach, as I talked about earlier, is kind of recreating that experience I had with Testy, where you play with someone who's presumably better than you, and you say, you play some games with them, and they say, here's what you could do better, here's what you need to work on, and here's how you can do that. And that kind of stuff a lot of people have a problem with, especially the paying part, because they're like, well, I can get that same content for free off a forum, or I can go to a Day 9 Daily and he'll tell me for free as well. And they're absolutely right, but it's not catered to them specifically. It's not nearly as concise. It's not nearly as compacted of an experience, if you will. And people can forward their game months or even years by spending a relatively low amount of money, or they can do the work themselves, and hypothetically they could achieve the same results, but most likely it'll happen further down the road.
Well, stop me if I'm wrong, but people who are watching this will most likely have watched the very recent 2 versus 2 show match between Team Europe, Team USA, Artosis and QXC versus Jinra and the Little One, hosted by HD Starcraft and Husky. And QXC, the player playing next to Artosis, is an old student of yours, isn't he? Who's done very well for himself through concise efforts and good coaching. Isn't that safe to say?
To a certain extent, yes. I mean, he certainly is one of my past students. He's one of the ones that has definitely launched off and made a name for himself as an extremely talented and good player. But I almost want to, I can't take too much credit at all. He's got a fantastic attitude. Even in our sessions, I mean, he came in as a very strong player. He was in the College Star League scene, and he was one of the top guns for his team. He definitely had talent. He definitely had ability. He just hadn't kind of busted out in any tournament yet. But when we sat down together, I mean, he went to it with a very much so workman's attitude. Like, there was no goofing around. There was no joking. He just went to work. And I remember some of our first games. I'm almost ashamed to admit this, and I'll tell you, I've improved upon this attitude. But a lot of my sessions in the past, months and months and months ago, this was a long time ago, I would enter this, the session like with kind of a laissez-faire attitude, like, okay, because I do 4 to 5 sessions a day, 10 hours. So it's hard to be really upbeat for every single one of them. And I remember sitting down and saying, okay, he wants to play a TVZ. And inside my head, I'm like, this guy wants to play my Zerg? That's all right. Well, we'll see how it goes. And in the first game, I'm playing my butt off. I never take it easy on a student. And he's pushing me back, and I'm starting to lose units, and he's dropping my main, and there's an eraser going on at this expansion. And I'm like, what the hell? Am I going to lose my first game to this paying customer? And sure enough, yeah, he just crushed me. He just wave after wave of units, and he just beat me. And I was like, holy crap. And I was like, okay. So we played some more, and, to save face in this interview, I did end up beating the snot out of him many, many times from that point forward. But it just struck me that this guy had real potential. He's a very strong player, and his attitude's fantastic. Like I was saying, he went at it. I would give him advice, and he'd really work on it. So, in a very long-winded way, I apologize. What I'm trying to say is, he's just such a fantastic player with a great attitude. It was bound to happen. I was happy to be part of the process to expedite that and make it faster. But really, QXC is a special player.
Well, you heard it there from the sensei himself, folks. But it's because I'm very much in favor of what you're doing with gosucoaching.com. I think it's an excellent thing for the community and will help it grow. And I think a success story like QXC, who definitely got there through his own efforts and intentions, he was also wise enough to see that he could develop further with extra coaching being the key word. So keep it up, QXC. But one of the very main reasons I wanted to do this interview is not only to hear your story, but also hear about this very specific and very exciting thing that you got coming up. I think calling it a StarCraft 2 boot camp is not a lie. What is this, and is this some sort of embryonic equivalent to the South Korean practice of pro gaming houses that many people know about?